Mr. Glover.
I'm trying to get set up. I think my doctor's in, and
You are listening to the Intentional Talk Radio Network. It is a Tuesday, and you're right, folks. It is time for Change Matters. This is where we talk to you, for you, with you, and about you, and it is all good. Right here on the Intentional Talk Radio Network.
And thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us. It's a beautiful Tuesday evening. And if it's a Tuesday, you know what that means. It's time for Change Matters Solutions. We do this each and every Tuesday here on the Intentional Talk Radio Network. It's 7 o'clock here in Big D, Dallas Tejas. It's a beautiful 7 o'clock in the evening. It rained all morning, rained to beat the band, but it's nice and sunny. My grass is all green. It's really lovely. It's 8 o'clock on the East Coast. It's 5 o'clock on the West Coast. And if you're in the Mountain Time Zone, hey, you do the math. We got another great show. As a matter of fact, we have an amazing show lined up for you with the legendary, the one and only Mr. Danny Glover. So make sure you stick and stay and don't go away. And remember, tell a neighbor, tell a friend to join the Change Matters movement. And I am your host, Kenny Hendrix.
And good afternoon. I am your host, Colette Williams. And just like Kenny Hendrix says, I just get so tickled when I hear that stick and stay, don't go away. And as Kenny Hendrix said, we've got a great show planned for you this afternoon. We've got a great guest, Mr. Danny Glover, none other than the famous Mr. Danny Glover. And you know what we do here. We bring all kinds of folks here. We bring special folks. And as I tell folks all the time, if they're not on the AAA list, they're going to have to wait. Because we bring in the AAA guest. And Danny Glover is a AAA guest, and we are so glad to have him here. It's a great day. It is a great day, and it is a warm, cloudy day here in sunny Southern. This is, as they say, it never rains in California. Well, guess what? It has not rained more than, 8 days here in California. It is brown. It is yucky. It is ugly. It is nasty.
I think I'll send you a picture of my grass.
Okay. Well, send me a picture of your grass because these folks here need to see it because we've had no rain here. Yeah. We have had no rain at all. And we are going to get this party started. I've got some good stuff going on right here, but we're going to have for Juneteenth, and we're continuing to celebrate Juneteenth. We will have, what is that called? Help me out here, Belinda. We're going to have 60 seconds of Juneteenth history. We will be talking to you and giving you information about Juneteenth, about Allensworth, about Tulsa, about the Black community, and all that we have been through. So there's a whole lot to talk about, and you do want to stick and stay. Don't ever go away, because this is where we talk to you, for you, with you, and about you, and it is all good right here. Go ahead, Kenny Hendrix.
And speaking of Tulsa, I'm about halfway through reading the official document on the 1921 massacre, and it is riveting. It is really, truly amazing what these people went through. It really needs recognition, and I'm glad to see that it's getting recognition. Growing up, I remember hearing about Juneteenth, didn't know a lot about it, it ended up being, somebody threw a barbecue over in Inglewood or something like that, but there was really no discussion. And as you mentioned to one of our guests the other night, Colette, that, our grandmother was from Oklahoma, but she never talked about it.
Yeah, she didn't never talk about it. Right.
Because I guess a lot of Black people were still ashamed of it.
Yes.
But the people did try to fight back. Okay, They did try to fight back. When they arrested the young man for the alleged attempted rape of the white woman, they did take up arms and go down there, and they were turned away. And interestingly enough, that is what set everything off even more.
Oh, okay.
They turned the armed Black folks away, and then they went back, and one Black man was walking down the street back to his car or back to the buggy or whatever they were using back then.
Yeah, his horse.
They had their guns, and a white man walked up and said, "What's a nigger doing with a gun? Give me that gun." And the Black man said, "That's not going to happen." And a tussle ensued. Shot rang out. White man laid on the ground, shot. And that's when all hell broke loose. And interestingly enough, at that time, everybody forgot about the guy in jail with the rape. They just wanted to burn things down.
They wanted,
They just went to the Black side of town and started burning things down.
Yeah. And they burned 40 blocks, 300 people or more than 300 people lost their lives, but they burned and bombed 40 blocks.
Mhm.
They decimated the community.
It was,
They
it was
wanted to
savagery.
tear
was
it to,
absolute savagery.
yeah, they wanted to tear it to shreds so that they would never, ever be able to go back. And unfortunately, we've not gone back. We've not gone back in the way that we should have. So, with Tulsa happening, with that massacre happening, and right now, today, there's a press conference tomorrow. I did get the information from Demario Solomon Simons, who is the lead attorney on suing Tulsa for all of this. But it is a stretch. One of the three last surviving descendants who were residents of Tulsa who went through the whole massacre, she testified in front of Congress last week. And they're putting a lot of things together. Demario is really, 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 he's out front with all of this. He wants to bring reparations. He wants to bring some kind of satisfaction back to the people of Tulsa for the descendants of those people who either lost their lives or who suffered as a result of the massacre there in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
And I believe we've got Danny Glover.
Danny
on the
Glover
line.
on.
It looks like he's having a problem getting video. Danny, you there?
I'm here, but I can't get any video.
Let me see if I can.
Okay, we'll help
we do
you
this.
out.
Okay.
Hold on just a
So I
second.
said, okay, I'll let you.
I just sent you a message to start video. Try it now.
Let's see. I'll start video. That's what I did.
I saw it trying to come in. Are you on your phone?
No, I'm on my computer.
Huh.
Oh. Okay.
I'm
The
trying.
video is there, Kenny. He just doesn't see the camera yet, but it's on there.
Oh, let me see my
No,
camera.
I don't see him. I don't
Okay,
see his video at all.
Okay, do you see your camera at the lower left-hand corner?
let me see. I'm gonna put my camera. I saw all that. I tried that. See my camera.
Yeah, Belinda, I don't see him. And I saw him trying to come in. It said D Glover, and it went away.
No, D Glover is on there. His mic is
I'm
on,
just
but his camera it has a red cross through it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and we can't get that turned off.
I can't. I don't know where. I'm only on this right here.
Okay.
Okay. What? Do that again, Danny. What you just did.
What I just now got to put. Oh boy, I swear.
That's okay. Oh
worry
no,
about
don't sweat it. Don't sweat
Do
it.
you
Did
have
you
a-
click
do you
on
have
the
a-
camera?
On the lower left side, you see where it says a little camera icon of a camera. It says stop video and a little arrow pointing up.
Yeah, I know that.
Okay.
I tried that.
Okay.
Because I see you.
Now, I tried that. Let me see if I get it again. I keep trying starts video, and it says start video, and I can't get it on. It says cannot start video. Fail to start the video camera. Please select another video camera. I don't know why it says not
Okay,
active.
click on the up arrow next to the camera icon, and you should see it says select camera, and then you should have a couple of options.
Where up arrow what now?
Now down the lower left side where it says there's a little camera icon, and it should say stop video or something.
It says start mute. It says start video.
Okay, click on the up arrow right next to it,
Oh, I see.
and then tell me what you see.
I see choose virtual background, choose select the camera.
Right there, select camera. Click on that.
Okay, I guess it would be this one. I don't know. It's not the old, the young. It's not the
Trying.
recent. Let's see.
Did you have more than one option in there under the select camera?
It's sir. I wish I had more computer sense than I have. Virtual driver.
Yeah, don't do anything there. But under select camera, it should be one or two options.
I have the RealSense camera front.
What else?
And I got 3D camera. I just can't get it. I don't know what it is.
Try clicking on both of those.
I tried clicking on both of those right now. I tried the two things that I have.
What about integrated webcam?
Well, I tell you, I'm not an expert. I'm in my doctor's office.
Oh, okay.
That's how important it was me to fly out. And
Oh.
I asked them for a room, and it's 8 o'clock at night, 8:30 this time, and they've been
Oh.
very what you call them, but I had
Linda,
to
you were going to say something?
Yes, I would suggest that you log out and come back in, and when it asks if you want the audio, say yes.
You mean video?
The
Video, it says
audio and
video.
video, just
Yeah.
say yes.
Mm-hmm. Try that, Danny.
I'm
Log off and then back on.
And if it gets too complicated, if you can't get it, we have you. We know what you look like.
And folks, to the listeners out there, we are trying to get Danny Glover, the legendary actor and activist, Danny Glover, on the line here. He's going to log off and then log back on to see if we can get that video going. Danny, go ahead and log off.
oh boy. So what do I need me to do now?
Just hit. You see the it says in the right on the right hand side.
The right hand, it says camera.
No. We want you to log off.
Log
Yeah.
off and then come back on.
You want me to leave and then come back on?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, let's see again. Try again.
Okay, there. He's off, and hopefully he will come back on. While he's doing that, Colette, why don't you give us some background on Danny? I was going through his bio, and he's done a lot more than just
Yeah.
act.
Yeah.
You know,
Danny,
Mel Gibson. He's done an incredible amount of things.
yeah, he really has. Daniel LeBurn Glover is an American actor, film director, and political activist. And he's widely known for his roles as Roger Murtaugh in Lethal Weapon. We all know that. He's been in The Color Purple. We all know that. And To Sleep with Anger in 1990, Predator 2 in 1990, Angels in the Outfield in 94, Operation Dumbo Drop in 95. And he's got prominent supporting roles: Silverado, Witness, Saw, Shooter, Death at a Funeral, Beyond the Lights, Dirty Grandpa, Ooh, Sorry to Bother You, and Jumanji, which was last year,
Mhm.
2 years ago, in The Next Level in 2019. And Glover was born in San Francisco to Carrie and James Glover. And both of his parents were postal workers, and they were very active in the NAACP. And Danny Glover's mother was a midwife who was born in Louisville, Georgia, and she graduated from Payne College in Augusta, Georgia. His father was a World War vet who graduated from George Washington High School in San Francisco. And he attended San Francisco State University in the 60s, but didn't graduate. But guess what? Look where he is now. And SFSU later awarded him the Presidential Medal of San Francisco State University for his service to education. And Glover has trained many, many people, many Black actors. He's part of the Black Actors Workshop for the American Conservatory Theater. His first theater involvement was with the American Conservatory Theater. He has done tons of things. He is also trained at the Gene Shelton Actors Lab in San Francisco. He does interviews at the Inside the Actor Studio, and he credits Gene Shelton for much of his development as an actor and really deciding that he wanted to be an actor. Glover resigned from his city administration job and soon became an actor. It didn't take him very long. He then moved down to LA to pursue opportunities, as a lot of folks do, and think they can get into acting by moving down to Hollywood, La La Land, and that's where Danny Glover has been. He's the co-founder of the Roby Theater Company with actor Ben Gilroy. Guillory. I'm sorry, Guillory. And also the actor, concert singer Paul Robeson in Los Angeles in 1994.
That was
And
an
what I
homage to Robeson. The
absolutely.
theater.
And
Mhm.
what I do want to tell you folks is that if I continue to read what his bio here and his bio, it would take up the entire show. That's who Danny Glover is.
Yeah.
He has got a bio that you would not believe. He's worked with all kinds of people. His cast members, Wesley Snipes, Angela Bassett, Don Cheadle, Jonathan Reyes Myers. Uh, say that for me, Chiweedle. Chiweedle.
Okafor.
Chiwetel.
Chiwetel
Chiwetel.
Ejiofor. Okay, and Roger Guenvere Smith, Moss Def, Isaac Day. These are African names that I'm not familiar with.
Now, Mos
And-
Def is I guess he was a rapper, hip hop guy, and he's done some stuff. So he's kind
Okay.
of now. Mhm.
That production estimated to cost $30 million, which was planned to begin in Poland in late 2006
That was
and
a
early
movie about
2007.
Toussaint.
Yes,
Overture.
film biography of Toussaint.
Yeah.
Yes. And in April of 2008, the Venezuelan National Assembly authorized an additional 9,840,505 for Glover's film.
Wait. Where are you getting it? That's not in my bio.
Oh, it isn't?
That
No,
was-
I know. Where do you get all the information from?
That's Wikipedia.
Everything's from Wikipedia. I've
Yeah,
never seen any of that.
Really? This
I've
is
never seen any of that.
yeah,
And some of the things that you talk about are stuff that I don't talk about.
really?
Yeah.
Okay, all of this.
You didn't get it from me writing that.
No.
Okay. So I wanted to I'm just concerned about, and I have to be, because their decisions, the people have information that may not be the right information.
Right.
That's
So
why
that-
it's always, I'm Danny Glover, whatever I am. Sometimes you have to kind of really, there's a lot in that was read was not the right information.
Okay.
But I'm
so,
not going to go over every stitch and tell them my life. I know my life and everything
Of
else that
course.
happened in my life. But a great deal of some of that was not the right information.
okay.
Okay.
So then we've got here your political activism in Africa, Brazil, Caribbean, the Haiti, the Iraq War, Venezuela. There's a lot of information here. Israel, your music, lots of information. So rather than go through all of that, and you've just told us that it's incorrect, we are not going to give out incorrect. You are here in the flesh. So we'd rather talk about you, your activism, and the things that you're passionate about, getting it from you. We'd rather do that than to get it from Wikipedia and it be wrong. So we'd rather.
I'm fine with that. I'm just so
Okay.
sorry. I don't know why my camera's not working.
Yeah, something's wrong. Is it your computer or is it your doctor's computer?
Huh?
Is it your own personal computer?
It's my
or-
own personal computer.
It's really strange, yeah, because it tries. I see it. I see the window come up, but then it just goes away right away. So,
But
You
I
just
don't
have-
know. But look, I'm not a computer. This is probably, I'm probably in need of a brand new computer, a more up-to-date computer that would be more efficient. But I've been, there's so many platforms that it's failed to go the video camera, select another video setting. And I've done all that.
And it still isn't allowing. And how old is that computer? Maybe it just doesn't have
It is. I have to stop long enough to get a new computer, perhaps.
Okay.
But
Okay.
it just, I just can't figure out where it just getting. Then like I said, I was in my doctor's office today. I flew back to New York to see my doctor. My doctor here is in.
Oh.
Yeah, and
Oh.
we were.
Well,
Okay.
it's after 8 there, and there's probably not much we can do about it now, but we've got you on here. So we don't want you sitting in your doctor's office for the rest of the night. We're going to get started with this interview. How about that?
Okay then. All right then.
Okay. So I'm not going to read anything else from Wikipedia. I'm going to go from the horse's mouth. Danny Glover is here with us this afternoon, and we are grateful, and glad that he is here with us. There are a lot of things that you are involved in, lots of things that you have done. Let's start from the top. And let's start with your activism. Would you like to start talking about your activism or your acting career?
Well, I mean, I'm an actor by accident, and I guess a lot of actors and actresses come to this work through some accident. Something happens, but what is very clear that if I had not been involved in movements, whether as a student at San Francisco State in the late '60s, or movements around the end of apartheid, movements around the fight to free colonial subjects from the Portuguese colonies, I'm not an actor. I don't find that. In fact, the work that resonates and certainly resonated me from the beginning, and provided a plethora of ideas and feelings, was the work of Athol Fugard. Athol Fugard, Fugard.
Mm-hmm.
And that work in itself was the kind of work that helped me center not only learn the craft of acting, because you learn the craft of acting by doing great work, great writing, whatever you want to call it, whether it's Fugard or whether it's Lorraine Hansberry, or that's where you learn, or whether it's Shakespeare. It's a craft of crafting. And so the idea of acting in something that was dear to my heart politically, that was the process of decolonization, the process that I saw in countries around the world, their sovereignty, and all those things led me to the movement to end apartheid in South Africa, as early as a student. Not when the anti-apartheid movement became worldwide, in a sense, with the symbolized around the freedom of Nelson Mandela, but also because it gave me a center. You know, when I went in college, I studied a great deal of what I call political systems, economic systems around Africa. I read a great deal of work around those systems around Africa. And those were the kinds of things that I tried to understand within the framework. We can talk about independence or sovereignty and everything else. What are the forces that dramatize and dictate people's real lives? Mm-hmm. How do they manage the kind of ways in which they transform themselves into active citizens and move on? My hero, the person I read the most was Julius Nyerere. Julius Nyerere is they referred to as a teacher because he was a teacher. And mm-hmm. Julius Nyerere was the first president of Tanzania. His ideas around African socialism, around African self-dependency, all those things were, when I read this as a young student in 1967, 1968, I read those as a young student, they moved me in some sort of way. And I've kind of followed tried to understand that through those ideas around sovereignty, independence, and self-sufficiency. And so those are the kind of things that, of course, that's in an ideal world. There are other political dynamics that affect all these countries' lives because they're empires that have power and have their own needs and aspirations as well. And certainly their needs, the needs of the common people, become secondary to the needs and aspirations of those powerful nations and empires as well. So that was one of the things we understand clearly when we look at the continent of Africa. And to some extent, you can look at the situation of African Americans in here, that it is defined, this history is defined by not necessarily what we need, but what they want to give us.
Mm-hmm.
What we
Yes.
need, as opposed what we need, which we struggle for through civil rights movement and through the movement post Civil War, the Reconstructive period, African Americans, formerly enslaved Africans, now who become citizens, begin to define the world by what they need, not by what the system is willing to give them. But the system only allows you to do that. That's my thinking. And we can look at it, we can look at Reconstruction, 1865 to 1877, and look at the great achievements we made, but they were cut short at the end of the 19th century and into the 20th century. So as Reverend Barber calls now, we're talking about in his Poor People's March, we're talking about the third Reconstruction, the civil rights movement being the second Reconstruction and everything else. So there's still human beings and citizens' aspirations that remain unmet. And those are the kind of ways in which I kind of frame my thinking. How do we achieve those things? Certainly organizing, and that's what we've done. Certainly having platforms in which we have information and a constant activism. That activism that doesn't just lay dormant, and then all of a sudden it finds itself alive again, but constant activism. And certainly there are issues that we don't discuss a great deal around our community as the issue of class within that framework as well. And I think one of those things is about that. Now, like I said, I'm trying to be as an ordinary citizen and trying to understand that. There's not a book of which kind that I've been able to write or whatever about that, but try to understand that through these movements, whether I worked in workers' movements, as I worked with various unions the UAW is one union, the United Auto Workers Union is one union I work with. Unite Here is another union that I work with, and I work with these. I've had these unions. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to cut off my phone, but I've worked with these unions because they're at the center of these unions is the fight for justice for workers, and that's one platform that I've been able to work on. And then as an artist myself, as an actor myself, to try to find other platforms in which I've made work on. But it is as we say, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
Yeah, right.
And understanding that,
Right. So
understanding.
So I want to ask a question. With all of that, having you made all of that quite clear, where do you think we're going in the Black community? Do you think that we have made any headway? Do you think that from 1921, the massacre that took place in Tulsa, do you think that we have come far enough? Do you think that we've done exactly what we should be doing or should have done? Is there any more? Because as it stands today, we are a culture, an ethnicity, a race of people, and we rely on others. We're not self-sufficient. So how do we get back? What do you think the course is? We can't go back and change history. And as Jefflin Johnson always said in college, she always said, he who does not know his history is destined to repeat it. We're repeating modern day slavery. How can we move forward?
Speaking for someone from my vantage point, and I'll say that this, I've read a couple of books, one book and a screenplay on the Tulsa, they burned it down on Black Wall Street, and see. If I were to kind of look at this from the vantage point of development, and crazy, within the context of change, there are various choices within that, historically, over a period of points in time. Over history, there's choices that are made, and those choices are made within the context of the the much larger development of a nation, in particularly this country, and an empire. And it was not an empire in 1776. It was not an empire. It became what it was because the first engine for the Industrial Revolution at the beginning of the 19th century was what? Cotton. Cotton had been a very luxury item because the reality it took by hand, and you had some of the most beautiful things made with cotton in places like Kashmir and other places in the world. So cotton becomes a luxury item because of the cost of manufacturing. The first cheap item for mass production in the Industrial Revolution was because of cotton, not wool, but cotton. And so what fueled this extraordinary period in the U.S. history is really, it's a poor country, 13 colonies at the time of its independence. All of a sudden, up close by 1840, 40 years later, it is it's the richest country economically, not militarily, but richest country in the world, period, because of cotton. It is now taking the first step in this whole thing called the Industrial Revolution, which was science now for the first time had an amazing impact on what we are capable of doing. We had steam at that particular point in time. We have fossil fuel eventually. All these are part of a development of a society in a country within a period that had never been experienced before by human beings. The 19th century had never been explored before. So I've been looking at this here. And who are we in this context? Of course, we knew that we were the ones who created the world. Paul Robeson would always say that we created the major wealth in this country, and we did on our backs and with our hands and bending down. So that's one way of kind of looking at the way in which we moved forward through the 19th century into the 20th century. An extraordinary moment, the 20th century, was the century of commodity, consumerism, the self and everything, self-images and all that. Jeremy Rifkin, in his book *The End of Work*, says that the depression of 1929, the crash and depression, was exacerbated by the fact that Americans had not embraced the idea of consumption. It wasn't a consumer society. These people, the majority of Americans were on farms in rural areas and basically not. So consumer society means that you have to begin to consume. My grandmother was born in 1895. She was not a consumer. She would. So all these kind of dynamics, and most of my grandparents were consumers. They used what they had and use it judiciously in ways in which they were able to sustain themselves. So all these kind of dynamics are new dynamics when we look at where we are now in the 21st century. So just looking at those patterns and everything else, the first thing that President Bush said after 9/11 was we got to get back to buying cars and consuming. That's his first edict. Didn't say anything about whatever. We got to get back to consuming.
Yeah, and it's going to be this.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with the pandemic.
It's the same thing with the pandemic. Absolutely, sure is.
This is the way in which our ideas in our community are shaped through these much larger framework of ideas that are necessary in terms, and we see those things as progress. Right. We see that things as the first African American, who's a woman who's elected, first woman elected vice president, and the first African American of African descent. So all these things are the achievements of that not to downplay those achievements at all. not to kind of like diminish those achievements, but in the larger context, what are the things that we have to look at in terms of take the pandemic itself? Who are the ones who are most vulnerable? My community, our community. Who are the ones who are the ones that are more susceptible and without who are not getting the vaccines in the numbers that they need to? If you do the statistics, is our community and everything else. And we say all those things, but do you have a history of dispossession, a history of neglect, all the history that they just don't go away just like that?
No, but how long does it take?
Well, the
How long
question
does
we used to say, the struggle life is about this is struggle.
Yeah, it is.
But
Still a struggle.
it's defining. It's that who defines what we're struggling for, who defines what we need, as opposed to what is allowed, what is given to us. Now, I can get on my little tangent, and believe me, I know something, and I'm very clear. What's very clear is that I'm privileged. Something happened to me in front of a screen that allowed me to live a very privileged life, in a sense, and things that happened. It certainly made the host, Warner Brothers, or whatever, a bunch of money, or whatever, a ton of money and everything.
Right,
But let me say that, so I can sit in here, because I don't have to get up every morning and worry about how I'm going to keep the electricity on, or how I'm going to pay the rent, or whatever.
Yes.
And that's to be honest. So let me put this in the context. This isn't a framework for me to look at the world and everything else. Maybe and I'm sure there are other people who may have their own a framework to look at the world, but understanding the question is that not when is it going to end, or when is it? The struggle will always be with us.
Yeah, unfortunately, the struggle will always be there.
It'll always be with us, but it always be. It's a journey. Now, I was particular by slavery and by segregation and by anything peculiar to this country. But look at the countries under colonialism in Africa now, where their resources and their human resources and extractive resources, they don't have access to them. So we're talking about, then you say, what does the system do? If this system is a part of this, and the system is that, how do we transform the system? Well, there have been attempts to transform the system. You know, there have been but
We create our own system. That's how we do that.
But let me say, the attempts to transform the system, and people try to think differently, those kind of movements have been crushed in a lot of ways. Because I've seen them, you know, Mandela died a very unhappy man.
Yes.
He died he had given 27 years of his life in prison, and he died a very happy. He was powerless to change the real dynamics that affect that country, primarily Africans, you know, and relatively small, at probably around 50 million people, and with enormous resources to just like boom, turn the clock around. But those are the things that happen, you know.
Right.
And certainly when I have a copy somewhere in my archives of the first Redevelopment Reconstruction Act put out by the African National Congress, the ANC. And it's not looking like that. It says nationalize oil, nationalize the banks, nationalize diamonds and everything.
Yeah.
All the ideas, and then redistribute wealth. That wasn't going to happen.
Right.
And they basically told him in so many words, look here, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
They told all the groups, you understand? You see this? That's paper.
Right. So I want to ask you a question.
That's an idea.
Right.
That's not going to happen.
So
You can say that it's lecture, but I've seen that in our case. There have been movements that call for community control of police.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
there was movement.
Right.
There was a movement that I was close to because in the Bay Area, a reason talking about justice in a different way. The Black Panther Party.
Right,
The
yes.
same things we talk about in terms of community control of police or community accountability. Black Panther Party was talking about in 1967. And before them,
Yes.
there were others who talked about that. And so we still contend with an issue in the sense that those people who are trained to protect our interests in our community and send peace, bring peace to our community, are not the ones who bring peace to the community. The peace to the community is creating job programs. Peace to the community is building affordable housing. Peace to the community. How do those things come? I live in a city that I love. I lived in the same neighborhood since I was 11 years old. I lived 12 blocks from where I grew up. I love this city. It's supposed to be a liberal city and everything else, but I walk on the street and see homeless people, whether they're white, they're African descendants, whatever. I see women homeless.
Yes.
I go to the airport in the morning because I'm going somewhere at 5 or 6 in the morning, like here, and you can see the streets where they become their habitat, their place.
Yes.
That has happened. So I'm just saying. So when I think about when I walk out the window and say, "Wow, walk out the window." If I walk out the window, I may not get out. I got to walk out the door. But when I look out the window, I'm trying to figure out on the thing. What are the things that we do? How do we organize in a way in a post-industrial society? When I say post-industrial, because at the second point of the kind, the industries aren't here anymore. The places where African Americans came to work, the longshoremen. It's a famous story about Harry Bridges, the great union leader,
Yes.
who went around to all the black churches. You don't cross the picket lines. If you do not become scabs on this strike, I promise you, black men will be at the dock when we win. And the operative words is, we will win this strike.
Right.
He had the cachet. All I knew, most of the people, if they didn't work for the post office, they were on the docks in San Francisco. You know, I have friends of mine who have grandfather worked on the docks and father works on the dock and so on and so on. So I'm trying to paint a picture there.
Sure.
That in a sense, with that, even with that these stories that we have, because we have our stories when we win.
We do. Yes.
When we
do.
win, and we get something, and we have to hold those up because we still continue to need more and to do more and to struggle more. And it's not about how many cars we have.
No, it isn't.
It's about now how do we create the dream, the real dream that Martin had of justice.
Absolutely.
And justice is one thing that we have to talk about. What is justice? You know, it's about love. It's about something much larger. It's about accountability,
Yes.
but it's something much larger than that.
Right.
And we're always toward moving for justice. Al Sharpton would say, no justice, no peace.
And justice does not look the same for us as it does for others. It just doesn't. And one of the other questions that I'm going to turn it over to Kenny Hendrix. One of the other questions that I wanted to ask you, you just said you're privileged, and we all know that. You're Danny Glover, so of course you're privileged. And you're privileged. Does your privilege look like what we know as white privilege? Is your privilege the same?
Well, I don't know how to answer that, because I don't think the industry that I work up is anything marvelous in telling stories, period. It doesn't tell stories that really bring communities together. So within that framework and context, I think it's a disservice to all of us, even my privileged position. If we did the kind of stories that we needed to be done, people would be in constant uprising.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
If we didn't talk about the truth, You
Yes.
know, we talk about the truth, then we would be in a different situation. So I'm growing up there, and I sound kind of esoteric, and I don't mean to
No,
be
that's
esoteric.
okay. No, 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 no.
Yeah, I don't mean that. You
Yeah.
know, I've watched people have victories, and see those victories reshaped by another decision that is disenfranchises them. And I'm running low on my can't see my problem. This is a problem. Uh, I'm sorry that I caught myself in a bind where I got 11 minutes remaining on my what you call
Oh,
on my what you call, and I can't find my cord. I said that I came here to see my doctor because it was important that I see him,
Oh yeah, we went to
and
the same
and and that and so I'm just trying to figure out how I can service what you do and do the best I can in being articulate about because dude, people are gonna say Danny Glover said this and Danny Glover says that, and I wanna be and whatever to say that because you know there were times when we had people like Harry Belafonte and everything and actors who said something. You know,
yes, yes.
not only when there was a camera in front of their face, but they said something that's important.
Well,
Because
you said a lot
unfortunately,
that's important. You said
yeah,
a lot that's important. And Kenny Hendricks has something to say.
yeah,
go
yeah,
ahead.
absolutely. And again, it's an honor and a privilege to have you on the program, Danny. This is amazing. But I do have a question. We talk about justice. We were just talking about justice a moment ago, and there's also equality. And I don't know if those are the two things or the two sides of the same coin, but justice and equality. Do you think that equality in this country is an unattainable social construct? It's something that people talk about, equality, equality, equality. Is equality, what is equality? And is it a social construct that is not attainable for us in this country?
Well, I think what happens with the word equality, and just listen to you, Kenny, just just say that and frame it in the fact of whether it's a social construct, because it allows us, it takes something away by and materializes the whole idea of justice. But justice is not material in that framework from my own vantage point. There is justice is telling the truth. Baldwin said it, when we cannot tell ourselves the truth about our past, we become trapped in it. James Baldwin.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot tell it, we can't move beyond that because we cannot deal with the truth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we cannot deal with the truth, whether it's in Congress, the same descendants who are descendants of slave owners and who say, well, I wasn't born there, I wasn't alive then, I'm not responsible for that. I'm
Right,
not responsible for that. Everybody say you're responsible for it. But
right.
there's something that is happening to a group of people who've been remarkable. This is the most remarkable story in modern history. The ascension of African, formerly enslaved Africans. They have the way what they've accomplished in what's called in every sphere in which they embodied and brought up their energy, spirit, love of themselves, in every way in which they've done that. It's the most remarkable story. We need to be telling this story, so that it uplifts not only our people, but the people who've been told their lies for all this.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
That's what it
Yes,
is. Come
yes.
on.
Yeah,
You can't walk out in even my city and see some of the things that you see without somebody saying, you don't understand. You
yeah.
know, you don't understand May Hundley voice. My great grandmother was born in 1858. You don't understand that. You don't understand Reese May Hundley telling the overseer when they're working on sharecropping, my kids don't go to the fields when they're school.
Yeah,
When they're school, my kids
yes,
don't work in the field. They go to school.
yeah,
It means a sacrifice. She says that, and the white overseer says, Mac, not Mr. Huntley, Mac, you better tell your woman, not his wife, your woman how to talk to white people. That's why my mama loved her mama and daddy so much. They
Yeah.
never went past the third or fourth grade. She was right there. That's why she virtually, I never met anybody who loved their mother and father more than my mother loved her mother and father.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been around anybody ever changed your, but that's what the truth. This story, this movement of people, you know, it's amazing. I think about it just in general, not whatever, just what they do, what we've accomplished, what we
Yeah.
continue to do, what we fight for.
Right.
And this is with our hands tied behind our back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, imagine what
Absolutely.
we could do.
Now,
with
look what we
hands
do.
tied.
Yeah.
You told me, I was in Santa Cruz. A friend of mine, beautiful brother, Nani Alejandro, has a group called Barrios Unidos, you know, and it works within the system, the penal system, the prison industrial complex, trying to bring people home, set them home, and everything else. I met all these brothers, man. Some of them, because we had from lifers to life, from lifers to life. I think he had this Saturday all day, and all these guys were life in prison. They got out. They was there, and it was so beautiful in the sense to watch these other. He said, man, someone said, man, because I've seen some of them when they were in Solidad and everything else. He said, man, it's glad to see you on the outside, not on the inside.
Yeah,
And we laugh
yeah.
about that and everything else. But these men and their souls, their spirits, man. You know, oh man.
And that's what we're supposed to.
Primarily they were African Americans in that setting. Some people came from
Sure.
other parts of the country. They're involved in this little thing, and this little event and celebration and everything else. And hey, you know, I got a love of a family relative who's doing life. You know, hey, you know, I know what it feels. I know what it feels like.
Right.
You know, thinking about him. First of all, you're thinking about Kobe because you wait for a call and all that. Maybe he's not, and he's maybe there's a chance that the next time he goes in front of the board, there's something's happened. You know, yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
So with all of that and the things that we have going on now, as I said a moment ago, you can't change history, but you can certainly create a different course. And just as you said a little while ago, we were talking about movements and you mentioned movements. There has been nothing like what was going on in the 60s, the Panthers and the inroads that they made and how they were able to bring all kinds of elements into the community. With the Panthers, it was not about money. It was about community. It was about collectivity. It was about collaboration. And it was about creating a community that could be self-sufficient. My mother was very instrumental in creating a community up in Altadena, no less, where women would do canning and they would create all kinds of elements and inroads where we didn't have to depend on anybody else. But nowadays, it's okay to depend on others to do what we need to have done. And I believe that has stifled us. I believe it has stifled us. And we talked about Black Wall Street. In 1921, when Wall Street was decimated, there's never been another Wall Street. There's never been another Black Wall Street. And it's a challenge to get Black folks back there.
Well, I mean, there's so much has changed, and this is not, Colette. This is not to say diminish the work that has been done, the creation of Wall Street. But what are the kind of systems of justice? If the system that we live under is born out of the exploitation of enslaved Africans, that's what it comes out. That's the foundation of it. It continues to find its power and leverage within the same hands of the descendants of those who were part of that. But however they want to see it, the reality is that we got to think about how this system, the wealthiest country in the history of the world. Listen, this is the wealthiest country in the history of the world. There's no documenting out of all the ways in which human beings came together and founded the nations. No country like this, with the most advanced technology ever produced in the world, in world history, in human history. Where are we at in using that to the benefit of people? Where are we at in using that in the benefit of citizens and life? What are the choices that are where because we're dealing with the other pandemic that is ongoing. That's the depletion of the world's resources. Global warming, that's real. And who's the ones who are going to be affected by that? The same victims, the ones we have now.
Absolutely.
They're going to be affected. Whether they're here, whether they're Africa, whether they're in Asia, whether they're in Latin America, wherever they are. And that's the reality. That's the truth of it,
Yes.
And we'll be fighting. We're on our way, in our own way, are change makers. We are, because we talk about the need for change. We don't settle in and of ourselves and say, well, everything's all right if this is it. It's not just about tweaking. It's just finding another way in which we can live with each other, and all of us living with each other, live with the rest of humanity and the rest of the planet, and this very precious planet that we live on. We call it Mother Earth, God's world.
Yeah, and
Mother Earth. And to find that. And the bottom line is that we got to find another way that. How do we move toward that? Is the kind of structuring of our own consciousness. How do we move to that in direct ways and emphatic ways and in material ways, at the same time preserving the rest of the planet and the regeneration? Because the Earth has been, since its evolution, regenerating. There was something else called dinosaurs here before. They're extinct. Don't be surprised that human beings can become extinct as well.
That's right.
Yeah, and I think you bring up an interesting point, because it's like what you were mentioning earlier. The problem with doing all those things, talking about the world's resources and doing things for mankind, unfortunately, there's no money in it. And we live in a capitalistic society, and there's nothing wrong with capitalism. It looks great on paper, but when you have unfettered capitalism and everything boils down to dollars and cents,
Yeah.
you lose sight of humanity. And that's, again, excellent point. After 9/11, when George Bush said, everybody go shopping, I think that right there completely epitomizes where this country is. It all boils down to, can you go back out and spend more money? It doesn't matter that, those buildings fell that should not have fallen. That's a whole nother issue about that. It does not matter during this pandemic where people died. We've got over 3.5 million people who have died, 604,000 that have died in this country. And people are still worried and upset. All the things that we have going on in the world. You see what's going on in Israel, in Palestine with the Hamas and the Israelis and all that.
Yes.
All this stuff going on in the world. And these people are upset because they have to wear the mask to go to freaking Walmart.
Yeah.
So we have all of our priorities are completely screwed up because of unfettered capitalism. And you could go on and talk about racism, you could talk about the systemic racism and all those things, but much of it is rooted in
capitalism.
The fact that we are completely capitalist, unfettered capitalism.
We don't know what the other system is. The idea is we can make an argument. The first capital that the slave owner had was what? The property.
The property, right. Mm-hmm.
Human beings, which were African.
Yeah, human beings.
Yeah, that's the first capital. That's the first capital,
Exactly.
And that is the first exploited, labor exploitation. It's been always the fight against exploitation. Empires have come and gone and everything else. They use different forms of exploitation. But at the beginning, capitalism is saying that the system says that workers are entitled to or receive some pay from their work, from what their contribution. What is the contribution that workers receive, should have, given that they are the embodiment of the production of that capital, that extended capital. The slaves were first and everything. It's all, we can talk about all that. I hope we get another chance to talk about this on another level and continue to talk about this. And there are others I'm sure there are others who have remarkable ideas and thoughts about this. But it's for me at 75 years old in less than 2 months, to be able to have a platform where people to think about this is such a blessing. To think about where do we leave when we're here? What do we do when we're here that benefits what it remains when we depart?
Yeah,
And-
that's the thing. Yeah.
And then depart. What it is that
Yes.
and I know my mother, and she left something, a task still to be done, from May Huntley, her grandchild, born in 1858.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, her grandmother born in 1858, not a grandchild. Her grandmother born.
Her grandmother. Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
and you talk about that, and the two reasons that the United States is an economic superpower is two reasons, in my estimation: 400 years of free labor. If you own a business and you've got free labor, which is your biggest expense, you've got a leg up on the competition. 400 years of free labor, and superior weapons. Those two reasons are why we become.
And Kenny, the other thing that they had is they have what they would call they had this extended, incredible land base that had all these resources that was prime for the Industrial Revolution. The First Nation people who worshiped this land and who talked about the beauty of the land and knew the understanding of how the land itself gave birth to one generation and the next generation and preserved the land. But these people found a way at this particular point to exploit the land in such a way, the water, all these natural resources, and use that to build their empire. And slavery and enslavement of African was a part of it. When you look at it, every single thing is a part of it. To exploit the earth, man, it's exploitation of the earth.
Absolutely.
But hey, it's when that period, science had moved to such a point in time that it was able to control or have impact on nature. Unlike people were no longer praying for the rain to come, or no longer doing the other things. They were doing that as well. And I'm not trying to be mischievous in my own thoughts, but because there were really this moment burst of 200 years of human development is unlike any 200 years in the whole history of human existence. And that's what it is.
Yes.
And all of that, it is there. And because the Chinese did things before. The Chinese came to the new world, North America, in the 11th century. Because the Chinese were an empire,
According to Rick Santorum, there was nothing here when.
Right.
Oh, by the way, we got another culture anyway. Screw them.
There was nothing here.
Yeah.
There was nothing here, and yet at the same time.
Yeah. So he lost his job at CNN for that, but that's the mindset, and that's the mindset that we deal with, and I think that is emblematic of the mindset that we deal with in the systemic racism here. That their culture is the only one that counts. What they've done is all that counts. All the good things, and you're absolutely right, Danny. I mean, if you look at the trajectory of progress along the past few centuries, it's gone like this. And in the past 2 centuries, it's just gone straight up, especially in the past century, it's just skyrocketed. But if you also take that same thing and look what we've done to Mother Earth,
Yeah.
how we've
Look,
decimated Mother Earth. And I
Right.
seriously believe Mother Earth is a living, breathing organism, and she's doing things to protect herself. They talk about
because we're not protecting her.
we're abusing her,
Yeah.
and she's going to do something to protect herself. And
Yeah.
we will feel the brunt of it. We will
Yeah.
feel the brunt of it.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what's going on right now.
Well,
But
yeah.
go ahead. Go ahead,
Well,
Dan.
I was just saying that the bottom line is that whatever we're able to do right now because of technology, and let's honor that in science. It's just jumped off the charts,
Yeah.
in the 19th and 20th century and everything else, and but there were people who had wisdom, the wisdom that allowed human beings to come out of East Africa 65,000 years ago, move throughout and settle in all the places through the Great Migration. There it is.
Oh,
Was that
we
your battery,
lost him.
Danny? Did we lose
That's
him?
that's his
Danny?
battery. That's his battery. Yeah, I heard it. I thought it was
too.
mine. Yeah,
Yeah. We lost him.
we lost him.
Okay, for listeners, we had the battery on Danny Glover's laptop has died, and so we've lost him. He may come back in on his phone, but we will.
Continue the discussion.
Right now, Yolanda, you had Belinda was going to be doing.
Yes, yes. And Belinda, while we're waiting to see if Danny Glover is going to come back, and I hope that he does, I'm going to send him a message. Go ahead with your moments in Black history for Juneteenth and Allensworth and the whole thing, the whole history of it. Go ahead.
First of all, as I share my, I call it our family stories from slavery to freedom land. I want you to know that some of my Allensworth family members, the descendants of Allensworth, are here on this show tonight. Okay. And one in particular, John Sloan, he lived in Allensworth. He went to school in Allensworth for a time. So I'm going to start with, let's just start with.
Here he is. Go ahead. Go ahead, Belinda.
Let's just start with my family. I know Yolanda said earlier, you can't change history, but you can create a different course. I think that's beautiful because that's exactly what my family did. My family, from the South, through the bitterness, through the heartache that they suffered when they were unjustly dealt with by the white people, they created a course to move. I'm talking about, I'm going to start off with this, the descendant, their names are Will and Frankie. Will and Frankie Williams lived, they lived in Arkansas. They sustained a lot of hatred and all of the stuff that the South had to give for Black people. They reached their peak, their point when they had acquired land. And you know how important it was after slavery for Black people to acquire anything. But land was really, really important to people. And I had shared last week about how my grandfather's land got stolen from him. I think they had bought 200 acres of land and forgot to record it. And so the person that sold it to him tore up the deed. He tricked them into letting him see it. And so Will and Frankie, he was a farmer. He had all of the talents of farming and growing. He had a beautiful growing hand. And they had all of this land in Arkansas. And one day, one of his white neighbors said, "I'd like to have your land." I don't know whether he wanted to buy it or he just wanted to have it. And Will said no. Well, that created a storm. So the storm was, he went and fabricated a story at the sheriff's office that got Will Williams arrested. Now, this is the thing in that part of the South. When they get arrested, the sheriff purposely lets you out while the KKK is waiting to lynch you. And so one of his, Will Williams' white friends, which is a farmer, said, this is the plan. You got to get out of town. And so Will went and he packed up and he left town because the KKK was coming for him. And he had a brother that lived in Allensworth. And he came to Allensworth, got settled, and then brought his wife, Frankie, and their 18 children to Allensworth, where they lived. There's one child left of those 18 children. Her name is Hester Collins. She lives in Atlanta, but she tells the story. She passes down the stories of the generation, and that's all our talk is about. Passing down your legacy so you don't repeat what was happened. They were Will and Frankie's, both their parents were slaves. And what's incredible about them is after they were set free, when they found out they were set free, they got married. Now, whether they jumped the broom or was in front of a minister, I don't know, but they were jumping the broom before slavery ended. But anyway, they got married officially. And so anyway, this lady, she's in her 90s now, and she's telling the story of Allensworth and being in the one room that housed grades, first grades up to 8th grade. And she talks about her father and his legacy as a farmer, he brought the skills that he had developed from the South. And when they came to the California area, he got his children's books and learned how to read and take care of his family. He was a sharecropper in this area, so he still knew something about farming. And I noticed you guys talked about cotton a little earlier, and how I have to admit, I picked cotton and chopped cotton. I did farm labor when my parents brought us out here from Arkansas. But, so in passing these stories, they came to this town called Allensworth. Colonel Allensworth was a slave himself. He was a slave that learned how to read and to write secretly. Wow. Because slaves weren't permitted to read and to write. Right. And so in 1908, he and 4 of his other constituents, they developed this town. Now, why Allensworth? Allensworth, number one, is the first town in California in Tulare County to be founded, financed, and governed by African Americans. And so Colonel Allensworth, he wanted to live in a land free of the South, in a land where he can be successful economically and intellectually. He was a smart man. Now, unfortunately, about 6 years later, after establishing the town, he was killed, and he came to LA and got hit by a motorcycle and died. But the men that established the company, the community with him, they continued. And the lady that's telling this story about living in Allensworth, she was about 3 years old when she came to Allensworth. And so they developed Allensworth to the point they had barbershops, bakeries, liveries, animal stables, drugstore, even had an Allensworth hotel. Okay, and so they were moving and shaking, and just like Tulsa or any other place, somebody decided they were recycling too many of these black dollars. And so the first sign of trouble that they had a water issue. Their irrigation was never delivered sufficiently, and the water supply started to have problems. Now, did they get any help from the white community? No, but they kept trying and trying. They kept putting in their dollars until they really kind of exhausted, their dollars. And they they kept, by the 1930, the population started to drop in the community. By 1966, they found arsenic in the water. And so that created a problem with the town surviving. Today, it's still there, but it's 60% Hispanic. And so a lot of the Blacks moved away to go to other farming communities where they could find work. I share, and my family share these stories of the South to not to hone in on the hard part, but to say we made it. And if we keep going, we can keep making it and keep making it. If we learn like Colonel Hollingsworth did and some of the people from Tulsa how to work together, we really can build something big.
Right. So Belinda, talk to us about Robert E. Lee.
Robert E. Lee. Now, Robert E. Lee, you guys know that he was a Confederate soldier, and Kenny had sent some real interesting facts last week that I didn't get a chance to go through. But Robert E. Lee was a slave owner, and he fought for slavery. He even had some of his slaves fighting on his side for slavery.
Yeah.
Right. And so he was also one of those slave masters that went into the slave quarters. We talked about that last week, but they went into the slave quarters and they made babies.
That's where Lee comes from.
That's where the name Lee comes from in my family. My uncle is a descendant of Robert E. Lee.
Wow.
And he looks, like he could pass, but, when I met his family, his uncles, it's no doubt they can't even pass for Black. Yeah, they were very white looking. And that's where I discovered the story of our connection with Robert E. Lee.
Wow. Well, that is really interesting. Remember the woman, I believe she's here in LA, but her last name is Jefferson. And she found out through searching. And at that time, they were not using the DNA. They were not using Ancestry.com. They were not using all these things. But she found out that Thomas Jefferson was her grandfather, I believe. Yeah, great grandfather. I think it was one of those.
Right.
And he was in the news a lot. And if you take the time, if people would take the time to go either through Ancestry.com or one of those, or talk to your family members, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, talk to them, the connection and the information that you can come up with is
Sally.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking
about. Sally, yeah.
I'll get it.
But the history and what we can come up with is astounding. If people just take the time to research and look back and talk to those who have lived long enough. My father is 92 years old, but he did not want to get involved in that. He did not want to talk about it. His parents didn't want to talk about it. That's why I find
Sally Hemings.
Sally Hemings.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. That's why I find the information that Belinda has about her family so intriguing, because we all have a history. We all began somewhere. And it's really important that we find out what, where, when, how, and why.
But see, a lot of us don't want to know our history because it's painful. They shared that last week on your show.
Yes.
The painful makes you grow. It could do one or the other. Growing is where you really want to go. I heard my cousin was telling me about when she was 8 years old in Arkansas, in Three Creeks, Arkansas. She witnessed a lynching of a young Black man where they tied him to a white oak tree. She can say it as vividly as it happened. And they poured tar on him and they lit him up and he yelled and he screamed.
Oh, God.
But what was incredible is she said they heard the lynching was going to happen that day. And people were coming from miles around just to be a part of this lynching,
Oh,
just to
yeah.
watch it.
Yeah.
And
And yeah.
she said she don't remember them ever taking his body down because they were in horror as they watched from a distance.
And remember, there are people who talk about the lynchings that they witnessed, and white people would bring their kids to a lynching because it was like going to a theater. It was like going to some kind of entertainment. Yeah, entertainment.
Mhm.
And the things that our foreparents went through, it really is disgusting when we have people who don't care about that history, who discount it, who disregard it. But that's the history that made us who we are.
But
And
see,
for
a
us,
lot- exactly. And there are a lot of family members that stayed in Arkansas and they built their lands there. And the prejudice, it didn't stay in the South, it came here.
Yes,
I
Right.
remember,
Yes,
I
it is.
remember, I remember my uncle and aunt, they bought, I think about 100 or 200 acres of land. And they had, okay, that put that one to the side. They did, but they invested in land, and one of the things that they invested is in a developing community. My uncle learned how to become a contractor and build homes, just learning, just watching, just like his dad did. And I remember when he bought a plot of land and he was building and designed his own home, the white people heard he was Black. They tried every measure they could to get him to sell the land to them, but he didn't, and he stayed in that community. Today he's a celebrity in that community because they know that he is the first Black there, and everybody knows him, but it's like the Beverly Hills of Fresno. And so these are the things our children and our cousins and all of these people, we need to teach them what we're doing, that's in a positive way, so they can
Yes.
say, I want to be like.
Yes, yeah, I agree. And the interesting thing is, as long as we keep doing what we're doing in the way that we're doing it, I've had students at the high school over here tell me they didn't want to be like that. They didn't want to be that. So we have to get our kids away from not wanting to be. That
You know what?
doesn't, and we've got kids who say that doesn't have anything to do with me. That's them. That was back then. That don't have nothing to do with me.
And what they don't understand is just by that statement, I don't want to be like that.
Yeah.
They don't understand what people went through to give them that choice.
Right.
The people before them did not have a choice not to be something. I don't want to be like that. They had to be what was handed down to them. You
Yeah.
had to be what you were. And I also maintain that as bad as slavery was, I think to some extent, Jim Crow was worse. Because at least during slavery, you knew what the boundaries were. You knew what you could do. You knew what you could not do. There were some boundaries there that it kept you relatively safe. Once slavery was abolished and Jim Crow came into play, you had no idea, which is why we ended up with Emmett Till coming down from Chicago to Mississippi.
Right.
Had no idea that just walking down the street, seeing this white woman was going to cost him his life.
Right.
And if you think about from a psychological standpoint, when you know you're a slave, you know you're a slave. And so then you can deal with that. But when you think you're free and they tell you you're free, but then they do everything in their power to make sure that you cannot be free, that is what destroys your mind. That destroys your drive. It destroys your manhood as a man. You can't protect your woman. All these things that these people went through. They went through all these things, and these are the things that are discounted. I'm not a big fan of Black History Month because I think when you say Black History Month, that gives license for the 11 months not to talk about Black history. We need just Black history, period. And we need to teach it in our homes and not wait for the schools. If it's not in the school, fine. because they don't even teach white history properly.
The right way. Yeah.
You know, I read an article of a college professor who was appalled at the level of ignorance of history of these kids coming into college at the college level. And he said, you know, in math, algebra, calculus, there's a minimum that you have to know to get into those classes. He said these kids were just stark, raving idiots with regard to history. They still believe, you know, George Washington chopped down a cherry tree and said, I cannot tell a lie. Those are the types of things they believe. And this is white history. What makes us think that they're going to teach Black history? When they teach Black history for that month, you know what they teach you? Harriet Tubman, George Washington Carver, and now Barack Obama.
Okay, I'm going to use a phrase from Ms. Colette. We got to change our narratives in our schools and in our homes. It does start, Kenny, with our homes first. And you were saying about how they were trying to break the zeal of Black men. They were threatened by the Black men. They were thinkers, they were creators, they were doing all of these things, just like my grandfather, who never got credit for that invention that he did. That, you know, once we know how good we are, then we will move forward. We will do better. They used to, in the stories that I heard throughout my family, they would go into the slave quarters, and the woman would be married to her husband. They'd be both Black, and the white man will come in there to break the man's spirit, and he'd have babies by this woman.
And there's nothing the Black man could do about it.
Nothing they could do about it.
And see, the Panthers, the Black Panthers were a threat. That's why they had to go. These organizations today are not a threat.
Not a threat.
Belinda, you talk about when we do something, we excel at it. Most of you may have heard that Simone Biles did this move that no one has ever.
A couple of days ago, Sunday or Monday.
I think it's the Yurchenko. It's so dangerous. Nobody even wants to try it.
Yeah, and she did it.
Do you believe that the Olympic judges would give her a 6-6 on that?
What?
Because they are somehow making it so if she does that, it's not going to count that much. And the article I read went back and started with, and some of you ladies may not know this, back in the late 60s and 70s, before Kareem Abdul-Jabbar became Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he was Lou Alcindor. When he played basketball at UCLA, he was the star of the team. He was the first one to dunk. They outlawed dunking in college basketball because of Lou Alcindor. And they're doing the same thing to
Simone Biles.
They tried to do it with Tiger Woods on the golf course by quote unquote tiger proofing these courses. Now you've got this white boy out there, Bryson DeChambeau, who's killing the ball. They're not talking about Bryson proofing the courses. So when we do these things, they try and try and try. Another person that some of you may or may not have heard is Lewis Hamilton, who's on the Formula 1. He's a race car driver on Formula 1.
Mm-hmm.
He is absolutely killing them. He is absolutely taking trophies, and he drives for Mercedes. And every time you look at it, turn on a Formula 1 race, if you're on a Sunday, if you're looking at TV, just turn on when you see it says Formula 1. I guarantee you, Lewis Hamilton is going to be in the top 10, if not the top 5 or leading.
Right. And remember, we had Jesse Iwuji. We had him on.
NASCAR, yeah.
NASCAR. He's NASCAR. And it was interesting back then. And it really wasn't back then because I think he was on the show 2 years ago. 2 years ago, he was a big deal. But because of the things that he's doing, the inroads that he has made, his prominence has diminished. I do see him on LinkedIn, but you don't hear anything else about him. You don't hear anything else about him. He made it on the scene, but they took him off of the scene as quickly as they put him on. And I only see him on LinkedIn. They don't talk about him much anymore because he's a Navy guy. He is, NASCAR, and he's done all these things. Of course, he did marry a different kind of girl, but still, they've taken away his spotlight. It's too much of a spotlight. They've taken it away. So again, we get lost. We get lost in the capitalism. We get lost in a whole lot because we're not willing to take a position that we'll give up to get. We don't want to give up anything to get. We just want to get. We want somebody to do it for us. And we've got to change our narrative. We've got to change the things that we do.
Darlene.
I just had a couple of questions for Belinda Williams, actually. Who is
Can you
the-
speak up, Mai?
Yeah, can you hear me better now?
Yeah, that's better. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, great. Miss Belinda Williams, who is the lady's name that you said is still living in Atlanta that is a descendant of?
Her name is Hester Collins.
Hester Collins. I wonder if we're related.
Oh my
Prob-
goodness.
Probably.
I thought about that too, Mai. Yeah.
Well,
Probably.
wait a minute. Where are you from? And her niece is here, Irma. Mai, what
Okay.
is your first name?
It's
My.
Mai Shalee, but I go by Mai, and Collins is my married name, actually.
So Mr.
I
Collins on right here, but Maisha Lee, Mai Collins is a descendant of Robert E. Lee.
Whoa.
No,
Well,
I
hello,
don't claim that.
cousin.
Yeah.
The Collins are from Louisiana.
Yes, and the Williams, Will and Frankie, they got married in Louisiana. I think they got married in Louisiana. So we have a lot of Louisiana roots.
The Collins, right?
Yes. Well,
Okay, well, we may be related. I don't know if were they near Morgan or Monroe, Louisiana?
Irma, you'd have to answer that, or
Irma or Darlene. Darlene said that Aunt Hester is a Collins name.
yeah.
Said it was
Her-
her married name.
Her husband's name was Frank.
So it's Frank Collins.
Yeah.
Frank
Hester's my
Collins.
auntie.
Okay.
Is she from Louisiana?
Who said that?
Irma Smith.
Irma, okay.
You said Hester.
And
your
Irma, I
auntie.
was going to ask Colette, who is that? Because you look like you could be part of our family. Actually, she looks
Irma?
like Melanie and Kelly.
I'm part of everybody's family.
I mean, I'm
Listen,
sitting here
we're
looking
all
at you,
related
You
somehow.
look like one of our first cousins, our father's sister's kids. Yeah. So,
Oh, really?
same,
Oh, I don't know.
same tribe, same tribe.
So
Oh,
was Hester,
well.
my other question, Belinda, did you say that Hester was the one that was 3 years old when they moved to
Yeah, she was young.
Allensworth?
She was the
And-
youngest one.
And how old is she now?
She'll be 95.
Wow.
Hmm. She'll be 95.
Yeah,
Okay.
she's born in 1926.
Okay.
Wow.
And do you know if, the final question, do you know if they had any claims, for the water that is still ongoing or was ever settled for the arsenic that was in the water? Or are there any talk of like reparations specifically for the Allensworth descendants?
Irma, do you know?
No, I don't know anything about that.
Okay.
I haven't heard anything about the water situation for the descendants that were kicked
John,
out.
John, you lived there. Have you heard anything about that?
No, I haven't heard anything about that at all. The only thing I heard that the Mackey was taking care of the water thing in Allensworth for a while, and I don't know what happened because I know the land. The people that didn't take over didn't sell their land. The group of people that governed the Allensworth, they bought the land and put money up over in Visalia for people to, purchase, get their money.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how it was, but anyway, different people, the organization of Allensworth, the committee, the people that had land there that didn't come back to Allensworth, they bought the land and it gave them so much money for the land, but they go down so far, not where the mineral rights were, where the oil was or anything, but they went down so far where they just missed the oil, where they just paid them for the land itself. And it was bleeding in other places, but as far as the water is concerned, I haven't heard anything about the arsenic or anything getting paid for that. And talking about the Lees, my oldest brother was a Lee, Monroe Lee, and he was from Arkansas. And I don't know his roots, how it was, but his father lived in Arkansas. And Dorothy was a Lee. She, and she lived in Arkansas. She lived in Las Vegas now. And Bobby, they say he was a Lee. And Betty, they say was a Lee. She lived in New York now. And I don't know if they related to any of them people that y'all was talking about or not, but I would try to get them to get online, but I did, like I said, I called them. I wasn't able to get in contact with them. The last time I talked to them, they wasn't available at the time.
Well,
But
we've
you
got
know-
30 days of
Thank you.
Juneteenth, so maybe they can get on one of their shows.
Yeah.
I sure hope so, because I like for her to talk, because my sister is about the same age on Hester, and she got a lot. Her opinion, what she got from Allensworth was different from mine, but about the coachman and the property down there. But I lived there, and from what I understood and went to Vassy and looked things up, was totally different from what some of the people said. But anyway,
Mhm.
make a long story short, just like I said, back about the water, I don't know about the arsenic, but I was there during the time that water was smelling like rotten eggs,
Oh gosh.
And
And
they had
people
to
were
drill.
supposed to drink that?
Yeah, exactly. But they finally got enough money to drill another well. That's when the Mackeys taken over. The Mackeys, yeah. Anyway, taken over. I guess
Wow.
I got that name right. But anyway,
So finally,
Oh,
it used to
I'm sorry.
flood Allensworth. That ditch over there by the railroad tracks used to flood Allensworth every so often.
Oh,
I mean, anyway, it was something else there. It was
okay.
Are you still asking questions?
yeah. Well, actually, a couple of statements. First of all, thank you very much. It's an honor to have all of you on and learn this exciting history. It's beautiful. I love learning. And I'm really honored to meet all of you virtually and to get that bit of history. And then lastly, my husband and I are affiliated with a group that is starting a school in Antioch, California and it's going to be a private African-American school called Allensworth Hamer Academy. So yeah, they definitely plan to teach Black history as one of the foundations, of that school. So,
And
yeah,
it's called
this was actually
Allensworth
significant.
Hamer.
Yes, named after the
Great.
towns, obviously,
Yeah,
of
yeah.
Allensworth as well as Fannie Lou Hamer.
Right. Okay. Well, you've got to
Both
bring
male
them
and
to
female.
okay, you have to bring them to the network. We've got to have them on. But as I said earlier, and I've got to piggyback on what Mai just said, it is amazing to learn so much because we grew up in South Central for a short period of time, and our parents moved us up to Altadena. So we really grew up in both places. And most of the history that we learned and what we did learn in terms of the Panthers and justice and all of the things that took place at that time came up there. In fact, my mother took us to a Klans meeting and we saw the Klan burning the white sheets. We saw the whole thing. And it was not just us, it was others also. We were all there to so-called protest. But she took us to a Klan meeting, and it was still very vivid, still
in
very
the high desert.
yeah, in the high
somewhere
desert,
like
right.
that.
But one of the things that I think is important is that if we as a community of people could get out of this idea that we have made it, because we really haven't. When one has not, all of us have not. And we do feel like, just like Danny Glover said, he's privileged. But our privilege, Black privilege, is not like white privilege. I don't care what you think, it ain't the same. In fact, it can never be the same. So until we find out, until we discover, until we realize what we're up against and what we're doing and what we should be doing, we're going to always think that a little privilege is better than none at all. And we're going to always be behind. And it's time for us to change our trajectory. Why are we waiting for someone else to do that? That's something.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Belinda.
We have to, yeah, we and that is very true. We have to start inside that home. When I was a little girl, we used to travel all over in the summer because my dad couldn't afford to fly us or put us on a train. And so we would go from town to town, and my mother, she didn't know that drinking soda pop would cause our bladders to burst. And so we would stop at the filling stations and we'd have to go, and they'd lock the toilets. They said it's broken. So we got used to peeing outside. And we get to a restaurant, we couldn't sit. If we made it in the restaurant, we wouldn't be served until everybody else was served. And so I remember going with my cousins to this hamburger stand. Everybody talked about it. And this was in Texas. We went to this hamburger stand and I saw a line and I got in line. And my cousin says, "Oh no, you can't get in that line. That's the white line. You got to go around the back to the back line." And I went around and I looked at in the back, and it was dark. It wasn't, proper lighting. And I said, "I don't want no hamburger." And I didn't, because I believe if we're not treated right, we should not patronize places that show us disrespect.
Absolutely.
I have a friend, singer friend of mine who I haven't seen her for a few years. She grew up here in Denton, which is north of Dallas. Her mother died birthing her because the hospital in Denton would not accept her.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. And when she told me that story, I you know how you hear something and you just don't know what to say and you just dumbfounded. We hear about these things, and here's a first-hand account. Her mother died giving her birth because they would not let a Black woman in a hospital in Denton.
God.
So, the stories that we hear in our past, they can be very, very ugly stories, but we need to make some lemonade out of those stories.
Absolutely.
I shared with you last week. My grandfather said, when you can't find work, when they can't hire you, then you hire yourself. You make work for yourself. My Uncle Claudia told me that, and it really did stick. And he did just that. He made work for himself because he got tired of being laid off.
Yeah. A friend of mine who's he trains on guns. He's got a company called Body Bio Tactical. He does tactical training. I take some training from him. His tagline is find a way or make one.
Yeah.
If you can't find a way, then make one yourself. And that's exactly what we have to do.
And that's what Malcolm said, by any means necessary.
Any means necessary. And stop and understand that there are going to be obstacles. And I hear young people say, well, I did this and they did this to, it's not, life is not about what happens to you. It's about how you react to what happens to you, because things are going to happen. And if you allow them to stop you, then it becomes your problem. You're the problem. If you run into an obstacle, figure a way around it. There's 4 ways you can go: over it, under it, around it, or through it.
Right.
Yeah.
And what's stopping you?
Yeah.
What's stopping you?
You become the only thing stopping yourself. The young brother was a dental hygienist at the dentist I go to. And a couple of years ago, he was working there. We were talking, bright young man. And he had been in the Air Force. He was now a dental hygienist. And apparently he still didn't want to, wasn't sure what he wanted to do, because I told him I was retired IT. And he asked me, what is it like being Black in IT? And I'm thinking about going into that. I said, man, you got one obstacle in IT. He says, what's that? He said, what's that? I said, yourself. I said, if you think you can make it, go do it. Don't worry about what people tell you, anything. It's hard. You're going to run into problems. I ran into some issues when I was in my career, but you don't let them stop you. You find a way around it. And that's what young people have to understand. Don't think, and again, as we knew growing up, you have to be faster, bigger, stronger than the white person next to you.
Absolutely.
And it's just a fact of life. And when that happens, you take it on the chin and you move on. You keep it moving. Because every time you quit, they win. Because that is exactly what they want. Good friend of mine, my guitar player, some guy at work, he's a forklift driver, tried to goad him into getting into a fight recently. He said, Kenny, I'm not going to hit that guy, because if I hit him, I'm going to lose my job. So he's trying to goad him into a fight. And this is a guy that actually had done time. He's been in prison.
Mm,
He finally figured out it's not worth it.
mm.
I said, brother, I'm proud of you, man. I'm proud of you for doing that. You just got to take it and just, whatever he does,
Move away.
move away
Move
and just
away.
keep going. Because that's going to piss, because success, and I don't remember who told me this. Somebody told me this at a young age. Success is the best revenge.
Yeah. And it is, always, no matter what time we're living in, success is always, that's why Tulsa was burned. That's exactly why
Yep.
Tulsa, the massacre took place. That's why those people lost their lives, because those people were self-sufficient. They
Do we
were
have time for
self-sufficient.
some more callers?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Yeah, those people were self-sufficient. They knew what they wanted. They did not rely on white folks. And now we don't move until white folks tell us or show us or give us something to move. And we've got to get out of that. We've got to get out of that. And remember, we're strong people. We're God's people. And that's the direction that we should be moving in. We are God's people. We need to move in that direction. Go ahead, Belinda.
Oh, no, I was just gonna, I was gonna applaud Nathaniel Williams, who's on for his family. The family was moved out west. He recently decided he's gonna move back to the South, to Atlanta, and he's bought up land and houses, and he's been like a real estate mogul in the Seattle area, and
Good.
now he's moved to Atlanta. And I applaud him. He's a young man and wanting to grow and develop.
Well, you may not. There are two girls in Atlanta that bought 97 acres, and they brought some of their family members
12
in.
families. 12 families.
Wow.
They brought 12 families in, and they bought the acreage in Atlanta. And they're doing a whole lot, buying the acreage. There's someone else that comes on to my network, and his name is Jerome Myers, and he's teaching people how to buy multifamily units so that you can put your family there, you can put another family member there, and you can create generational wealth. Everybody's got a spot. Everybody's got a place. We have to get out of the idea that we just can't do it. We've got to wait for somebody else, which brings me to another point, and I'll give you the floor, Ken. But the other thing that I wanted to say, we talk a lot about the Black music. We have Black Music Month coming up here, June 1st, and we will be bringing, as usual, some top name people in to celebrate Black music. But one of the things that has gone wrong in our community is that Black music, or the music that you hear today, one, it's not real music. Two, how is it that the rap, the hip hop, whatever it is, rap can come in and do the damage that it has done? Now folks are saying it has done damage to our community.
Finally coming up to grips with it. Yeah.
They're finally coming to grips with it.
Mhm.
But the interesting thing is, when white folks said, here's the money, but this is how you have to do it, those kids said, oh, we got money.
Yep.
We got money. And a couple of weeks ago, Ken put on share the screen here on one of the shows about all of the rap people who have left this earth because of rap music. And I say because of rap music, it caused a rift between the East Coast and the West Coast. How many were there, Ken?
Let me bring that back up.
It's really, it's embarrassing. It's a shame. It's horrible. Rap music and the damage that it has done to the community. We've got to acknowledge that. We've got to acknowledge that. And the interesting thing is, someone just said to me recently, nobody else does that. Nobody else calls women the BI. In fact, we've got somebody who wanted to bring someone on the show here who's a rapper. And I listened to what he wants to do here on this network. Just know we can't do it.
No.
We can't do it. We won't do it. And they should not want me to do it. They should not promote that. Because how many times can you say in your so-called lyrics using the BI, the FU, the PU, the HO, how many times can you use that and it's okay?
Gil Scott said, you can't call her a queen on one record and call her a joke on the next. We got about 11 minutes left. Let's see. Anybody else have any comments? Want to get in on here? Unmute yourself and just jump right in. It's kind of an open forum right now.
We're still waiting for Danny Glover to come back. He should be in his car on a New York highway, but
I see we've got some other people that joined. And no one else has raised your hand.
Let's talk to Leonard Collins.
Okay.
Leonard.
Okay. Somebody said Sugar T's on.
Hold on a second. Oh. I have to get mute. Sorry. This is a great show. I feel so touched by this because we're having the same conversation, and I know we say the same thing over and over again, but that there's an old adage: the squeaky wheel gets the oil. Mm-hmm. And because we're recognizing this, but we also, as intentional talk, as a group, we need to get the younger generation on to listen to this and to hear about all of these ancestors that are actually living. Because there's an old African proverb, they say, once an ancestor or a grandfather or a grandmother dies, they said a library has gone. Just based on the knowledge that they have, and we should cherish it. And so having these individuals on, I mean, this is history, and we don't want to wait until they're gone to see, God, or they're in heaven. We need to cherish them now so we can feel that zeal. We can feel that passion. My grandmother lived to be 102. So she was born in 1911. So that was 10 years before the Tulsa race riot. So my first trauma, Kenny and Yolanda, our first trauma was when John F. Kennedy was assassinated. That was our first trauma, right? And we were only, 12, I think, 12 or 13? 11, I think we were, right? 1963?
11, 1963.
Yeah, we were 11.
Edison,
so my grandmother,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so our parents were trying to shelter us a little bit. So you can only imagine what my grandmother went through at 10 years old by 1921. But again, she passed in 2013, but the knowledge and the wisdom and grandparents and grandfathers, the thing that they give us is encouragement. They protect us and they keep us wise. Mm-hmm. It's like that Bill Weathers song, Grandma's Hands. But anyway, I can talk all day. A great show, and I'm glad to have all of you on. But again, the nation needs to hear this. Yes. Not just us. We already know. Yes. And we need to create a movement because, like I said before, we only have 20 more years and we're out the game, and we won't be able to reverse it.
Where'd you get that from?
I got it from my, okay. Anyway, Melinda, do me a favor, because that just led me into something. I have a website that's called, and it's all one word, OurUndergroundRailroad.com. And it's all one word, OurUndergroundRailroad.com. Mm-hmm. And then it's a 15-minute narration, but it's a PowerPoint. And when you're there because you'll see Muhammad Ali, you'll see Richard Pryor, you see Angela Davis, Maya Angelou, Malcolm. So you're right there. But hit play right in the middle and just listen to it. And that's where I got it. We only have 20 years left.
Okay.
But thank you, Yolanda.
Yolanda, I wanted to also tell you, there's a lady on, her name is Gloria Collins. Gloria is the daughter of our living legend, Hester.
Okay. Oh, wow. Very good. Thank you for joining us, Gloria. Yeah. Thank you for joining us. One of the things that I wanted to say also is that we've got rich history, and I have continued to say to Belinda that we have such a rich history. She has her fingers on our history because her history it spans across hundreds of years. So the information that Belinda is able to disseminate, whether it's on this platform or any other, I wanted to hear the information because Belinda and I have talked about this. But this is what our kids need to hear. My granddaughter needs to hear. Everyone needs to hear this because it is so rich. It is so important. It is so valuable. And one of the things that Ken said just a little while ago is that we're no longer feared. No one fears us because we are not the Panthers. Today, the Panthers are long gone. And the BLM movement is nothing like the Panthers. BLM got money and they're gone. And every day I read another article, I see something else on the internet that says, well, the latest one was BLM wanted to go to the White House and they were not allowed in. They were not allowed there, which speaks to BLM. They're not the Panthers. They're not bringing to us what needs to be brought to us in terms of leadership, in terms of what's going to happen in the Black community, because that's not what they're about. Sadly, that is not what they're about. And perhaps their platform, their mission, had it been different, maybe this outcome, maybe what's going on right now with them would not have taken place. It would not have taken place because the issues that surround them now are personal and political issues. They're not issues that the Black community has brought to them. So with the Panthers, it's an entirely different kind of movement. With BLM, once again, it's a different kind of movement. And BLM wants others to speak for them. And they rally around others speaking for them. And again, that takes us to where we're trying not to go. That changes our trajectory. That changes everything. So we've got to do a better job of what we want for our own communities. We absolutely have to, because we know that this is not what our ancestors would have wanted. I know that, and I didn't even have to have a conversation with them. I know that. They would have wanted something else, So we've got just a few minutes left. Belinda, do you have anything that you'd like to close with?
I'd like to thank Belinda for all the information that she's given us. My name is Virginia Fierce. I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. I was born in 1938. My husband was born in 1920. Belinda interviewed him, and she did something on him last week. And I learned so much from listening to Belinda. And I just think, I'm from Alabama, born in 38. I heard nothing about Juneteenth until I came to California. We came out in 63. I was in Birmingham. I went to school in Birmingham, never heard anything about it. It was just amazing. So wow. I'm just going to listen to this program every week because it's so informative and I just love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. I want to go to Thump. THOMP. Is that Thump?
You've got 3 minutes.
Yeah, that's Nate. Nate, do you know how to unmute? Did he unmute?
Okay, that maybe not.
You have to unmute. Okay, go ahead.
Hello?
Yes.
Do you want to say anything?
You can hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Obviously,
please make it quick. We've only got a couple minutes.
My name is not Thump. It's
Thompson.
It's my girlfriend's last name, Thompson. And it's her computer. My name is Nathaniel Williams.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And I am Hester Collins' nephew.
Ah, okay. Great. Well, thank you for joining us, Thompson.
Oh.
No, Nathaniel.
I know. I know. I know.
Okay, we've got 2 minutes left.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
Can we chime in? Cheryl Whittle. Cheryl Whittle is a Cheryl. Are you there?
Cheryl.
Hello, everybody.
Go ahead, Cheryl. Go ahead. We gotta cut it short. Hurry up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say hello and thank you for a great show. I appreciate hearing all the knowledge and the camaraderie and the collegiality among everybody.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us. It's been
Cheryl
a pleasure.
is a college professor at Fresno State University.
No, outstanding.
Yeah.
Great, great. Well, folks, I want to say thank you very much for joining us. It has been a pleasure to have all of you on. And thank you for the information, Belinda, but you will be back with us. We've got more coming tomorrow. We're focused on Juneteenth, 30 days of Juneteenth. So next week, we will be doing the same thing. Next week is the first. We will start the celebration for Black Music Month. So please come on back. And as Kenny Hendrix says, and I'm going to get him when we finish here, stick and stay and don't go away. This is where we talk to you, for you, with you, and about you. And it is all good. Have a good evening. Does anybody need help getting to their car? Is it dark
Thank
outside?
you.
Have a good
Thank
night,
you.
everyone. And thank you very much. Thank you so much for joining us. And Danny Glover will be back with a better computer and a better phone. So thank you very much, everyone. Take care. Have a good night. Talk to you then.